Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 1 Minute Breakdowns, where we break down each and every fight on the upcoming UFC card in a minute to 2 minutes. If you guys haven't already, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Let's go ahead and get this channel to 400 subs. I think it's about time. But without further ado, let's go ahead and give the people what they want to hear. First fight of the night, we have Charles Johnson going up against Rafael Estevam. Charles Johnson will be taller by 1 inch. He'll be the fighter who has a longer reach by 1 inch. He's the older fighter by 5 years. We saw today that Estevam struggled to make it to the scales, and he weighed in 3 pounds overweight, and that just did not look good. He had to be helped by one of his teammates onto the scale. Looked like he just botched the cut, which proves to be beneficial for Johnson in this spot. Johnson, yeah, he's lost his past couple fights, but to some really high level competition, really good grapplers. Where Estevam, sure, he might have one round of takedowns and grappling, but I think down the stretch, Charles Johnson's probably gonna cook the cardio here and probably find a late finish in this spot against Estevam. I think he's the much cleaner striker. Estevam's striking is very poor. He's primarily just a grappler, and if he can't get that going, I think Charles Johnson just takes over, and this underdog pricing just makes no sense to me. So give me Charles Johnson. I know a lot of people do not like Charles Johnson for those last two, but I mean, you got to play that price. Next up, Nicholas Mota going up against Trey Ogden. Nicholas Mota is going to be the younger fighter by 4 years, the shorter fighter by 2 inches, and will be giving up an inch and a half in reach. Trey Ogden is a guy that has always lulled his opponents into his own game plan, where he just is in a very low volume kickboxing affair, and that's just quite simply how it is. He was advertised as a wrestler coming into the UFC and a high level grappler, but really hasn't shown much of it. Just low volume striking, and that's all. And then on the other side, Mota, decent striker. I like his striking technique. His grappling has come a long way as well, but his durability remains to be an issue. And a funny thing is, Trey Ogden has never won a fight by knockout. Mota's been knocked out 4 times. But Mota has some decent knockout power, but Trey Ogden has never been knocked out. So it just something has to give here. Sorry, Ogden has been submitted 4 times, not knocked out. Something has to give here. I think Mota is on the up and up here. He's put on some muscle. If you see his pictures from the gym, some people from Extreme Couture have mentioned to me that he's been looking really solid, and this weight cut has gone well for him. So that's a good thing to hear if you're on the Mota side. For me, it's Mota or pass here, but I'm passing. It's too close of a fight for me, and Ogden just has a way of lulling these guys. Next up, we have Eileen Perez going up against Lucy Pudilova. Eileen Perez and Lucy Pudilova are both 29 years old. Pudilova is the taller fighter by 3 inches, and she will have the inch and a half reach advantage in this spot. We saw Eileen Perez barely make it to the scales today. She weighed in the first time, missed, and then cut that half pound that she was over, and made weight officially. She was sent to the hospital. She got IVs done. I'm not sure how this fight is still happening, because usually, to my knowledge, IVs are banned, but whatever. They're checking the vitals and making sure she was okay to go, and she announced that she's still fighting. So in this spot, I think if Eileen Perez goes for 10 takedowns again, like her last fight, she might gas out very bad, and that's where Lucy Pudilova can take over. But I wouldn't be confident in laying juice with Eileen Perez here, but I also don't really like Lucy Pudilova's game plan. She was initially a striker that was brought into the UFC, left, and then came back and somehow became like a wrestler. You look at her tape against Jocelyn Edwards, that was not the best look in the world. And yeah, I think Eileen Perez wins this fight, but I don't want to lay juice on her in this spot, especially after that botched weight cut. So yeah, give me Eileen Perez, but low confidence. Next up, we have Lucas Alexander versus Jeka Saragi. Lucas Alexander missed weight again, weighed in at 148. He is both fighters are 28 actually. Alexander is 3 inches taller and will have a 4 inch reach advantage in the spot. I think Jeka is just a knockout in round one or bust. Alexander should be able to style on him over 3 rounds and win a decision in this spot. I don't like what Jekka brings to the table. Very small, I would say, for the weight class, and then also just doesn't seem to have that dynamicism in the striking and doesn't really throw clean combos. So for me, I lean towards Lucas Alexander, but that's not any surprise. He's a huge favorite in this spot. Next up, we have Mick Parkin going up against Caio Machado, coming off of the Contender Series. Caio Machado is the younger fighter. Actually, no, he's the older fighter here by 1 year. Sorry, I misread that. Both fighters are 6'4", and Mick Parkin will have an inch in reach. So Mick Parkin, I think this is his fight to lose. Caio Machado doesn't throw any volume at all, and we saw against Kevin Sovalski, uh, it just looked like a slop fest over 3 rounds. Both guys gassed out in a low volume heavyweight affair. I think Mick Parkin is just much more skilled than Caio Machado in this spot. Throws much more volume, is much more accurate, and can wrestle. So I think the favorite price tag, the heavy favorite price tag, is warranted for Mick Parkin in this spot, and I think he gets Caio Machado out of there, probably second or third round. Next up, we have Chris Leroy Duncan going up against Dennis Tulin, stepping in on short notice. Tulin is the older fighter by 7 years. He'll be the shorter fighter by an inch, and then we'll be giving up 2 inches in reach. I think Christian Leroy Duncan is the rightful favorite here. Tulin's durability is pretty bad, and when you look at his past couple of fights against RoboCop, really had no answer for the grappling, and then the ground and pound really just took him out there. Against Jun Young Park just styled on him. If you have any little bit of grappling, you should be fine against Tulin because he has none. And I'm really surprised he beat Jamie Pickett, but it's Jamie Pickett at the end of the day. If Chris Leroy Duncan doesn't mess around here, I think he knocks out Dennis Tulin in the first round. But last time out against Armin Petrosian, he was doing some weird shit. So, yeah. All that to say, Chris Leroy Duncan should be a good parlay piece this week. Next up, we have Chad and Hellinger going up against Jose Johnson. Chad and Hellinger is the shorter fighter here by a whopping 6 inches. He'll be given up 7.5 inches in reach, and he's the older fighter by 8 years. I think Jose Johnson, this is his easiest fight in the UFC to date. He should be able to get whatever he wants against Chad and Hellinger. This is a striker versus striker matchup, and Jose Johnson has always struggled versus grapplers. And I don't think Chad and Hellinger has the wrestling or the grappling to keep Jose Johnson down. I think this might be a club and sub spot. I've been saying this a lot everywhere. I think Johnson might be able to get the submission just due to the limbs. He has some long arms, and if he clubs them, I think it's a sneaky Darce choke or a guillotine, which is waiting to happen. So yeah, give me Jose Johnson. Next up, we have Jonathan Pierce versus Joanderson Brito. Jonathan Pierce is the older fighter by 3 years. He'll be the taller fighter by 5 inches, and then we'll be giving up an inch in reach. I think it's Brito round 1, and then live spot for Jonathan Pierce after round 1. Because Brito has all the power in that first round. He's knocked so many people out in that first round, and Pierce is kind of fragile. But after that, I think Pierce can just dominate with the wrestling as Brito gasses out. Dude carries a lot of muscle for the weight class, and with all that lactic acid building up, he will slow down and he will gas out as he has in the past. I think Pierce brings an insane pace to his fights, and I think he can finish Brito. Fight doesn't go is a good look, but obviously that's pretty juiced. The under 2.5 is also another solid spot that I would like to take. But I think that's about minus 170 currently on the markets. But yeah, I like Jonathan Pierce in this spot, but I'm not going to play him pre-flop. I'm going to probably look to enter live with him. Next up, we have Uros Medic going up against Miktabek Oralbay, making his short notice debut in the UFC after an insane knockout last time out in the LFA. Miktabek Oralbay is a dude that has 3 fights in LFA, is 3-0. Very physical fighter. He's the younger fighter by 5 years. He'll be giving up that's 3 inches in height, and then we don't have reach metrics on him, but Medic will definitely be a little bit taller. I remember hearing an interview where Oralby was saying that he wanted to try and cut down to lightweight because he feels that he can, and it's just probably the more natural weight class for him. And I agree, it might be. He does carry a little bit of fat, but not like a blob in a sense. Super powerful, good striking technique, and this guy can really beat people who give up a lot of physicality. And in this spot, Uros Medic is a guy that gives up physicality. I usually don't tend to back Uros Medic in most spots just because of that. And last time out against Semmelsberger, he was losing the fight until that finish in the third round. It was 1-1 going into it, but the third round was being dominated by Semmelsberger, in my opinion. Uh, I thought initially Semmelsberger was going to grapple him, barely did. And yeah, I just think Oralby is too physical. I know this is short notice, but the reason why I brought up the cut to lightweight in the future for Oralby is that he barely had to cut weight apparently for this fight. He was weighing in around like 178, so 8 pounds isn't much to cut at all. I like Oralby in this spot. I think he's just a little bit too physical for Medic here. Somebody called a Medic for him. Next up, we have Amanda Ribas going up against Luana Pinheiro. I'm going to keep this one short. I think Ribas is the rightful side. I don't think she should have went to 125 in the first place, but she is quite chinny, so I don't like that. I think Pinheiro could possibly finish her, but I would rather take the fight doesn't go instead of the Pinheiro money line, just in case Ribas is able to finish her. Yeah, not much to say about this one. Not the most inspiring take here, not the most confident either. But next up, we have Peyton Talbot going up against Nick Aguirre. Peyton Talbot's a huge favorite coming off of the Contender Series. He is an inch taller than Nick Aguirre. He will be giving up 4 inches in reach, and he's a younger fighter by 2 years. I think Peyton Talbot, hot take. I think he's going to finish Nick Aguirre inside the distance here, probably late round 2 or round 3. Aguirre is a very bad striker. He can grapple, has some good jiu-jitsu, and Talbot does get taken down. But after round 1, I think Talbot's just going to be too much for Aguirre in the striking. He's very technical, and the volume, he just doesn't let up with it. And to be honest, against Lopez, I was about to say Lopez, against Cortez Acosta, I really liked the get-up game from Talbot, even though he did give up a couple takedowns and he did some flips and shit. He did really show himself, show that he can get up from these takedowns. And the striking obviously is pretty good for a newcomer. Let's just say that. Throws straight down the pipe in combos, kicks. So I just think that he's going to find the chin. He's going to overwhelm Aguirre, and he's just going to be too physical for him. So Talbot inside the distance, but that's juiced. Next up, we have the Twitter war of the week. We have Chase Hooper going up against Jordan Levitt. Chase Hooper is the younger fighter by 4 years. He's the taller fighter by 4 inches. Sorry, I can't do math right now. And will be the fighter that has a 3-inch reach advantage here. I think Chase Hooper is going to be the guy that gets a lot of control time in this spot. I think his length and his height advantage here is going to be what dictates the fight. In the grappling, Levitt and Hooper both tend to give up control, but Levitt, I just think his scramble ability is not that good, especially later on in the fights when he starts to gas out. Both fighters have pretty garbage striking, but I think Hooper's length here and reach will help him out. Give me Chase Hooper. Not a confident take at all. Co-main event, we have Jake Matthews against Michael Morales. Michael Morales is going to be the taller fighter by 1 inch. He will have a 7-inch reach advantage in this spot, and he'll be the younger fighter by 5 years. I think Michael Morales showed us last time out that he has the tools to beat the top tier competition in the UFC at the weight class. And a guy like Jake Matthews, who his wins are against some pretty subpar competition, but his losses are against some really good competition. You just really don't know what to do with him. You don't know where he is, technically speaking, and also just as a fighter. I do like Morales in this spot. Obviously, he's a huge favorite. Probably finishes Matthews in the first or second round. I don't like how Matthews was getting touched up by Darius Flowers, and that on its own is just like a big red flag. Darius Flowers, coming off the Contender Series, who was getting bopped left and right, was able to tag him and almost hurt Jake Matthews. But yeah, give me Michael Morales inside the distance, probably by knockout. And last but not least, Brennan Allen versus Paul Craig. Brennan Allen is going to be the younger fighter by 8 years. He'll be the shorter fighter by an inch, and he'll be giving up an inch in reach. This is a tough one. Paul Craig is a guy that I usually that I like to back, especially at big dog odds. I know his durability is questionable, but Brendan Allen's a guy that time and time again we trust as a favorite and a big favorite, and he tends to disappoint, like against Malkoun, where he arguably lost that fight. Let's see, I'm forgetting one here. Against Bruno Silva, he was striking with him like a maniac, and he got dropped until he dropped Silva. So that was a bad look. And then Muniz was a really good fight. He performed. That was probably his best performance to date. Yeah, I just can't lay this big of a price tag on Brendan Allen, who just has that weird inconsistency with his fight IQ. You can't trust it. You don't want to trust it. And in this spot, Paul Craig usually performs really well as an underdog. I'm throwing a shot on Paul Craig. I think he can get this done by knockout or by submission. Elite grappling, very powerful striking. I think this 185 middleweight weight class for him is going to do him wonders. So yeah, give me Paul Craig inside the distance. But yeah, guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let's make some money tomorrow, and I will see y'all later.